Hello there, everyone. Shibby here. Hope everyone out there is doing well. And today I'm back with something a little different. That is, today I've decided to make a tier list video. Now, a tier list video of what you may be thinking to yourself. Well, I've decided to randomly rank all of the Resident Evil games, or at least all the major games, or I should say, all the games that are on this tier list that I happen to find on Tier Maker. So we're kind of at the mercy of that, if I'm being completely honest. But you might be wondering, why in the world am I ranking Resident Evil when I primarily run a fighting game channel? And that is because, well, Halloween's right around the corner. I thought it'd just be fun to do something silly like this, and you may or may not know from the kind of content that I post, but survival horror is one of my favorite genres, and Resident Evil is my favorite survival horror favorite survival horror genre, my favorite survival horror series, and the only like non-fighting game or card game that I have playthroughs on of the channel. I actually do have a few complete Resident Evil playthroughs from my infancy of starting this channel up. But yeah, that's really my reasoning for this. I like survival horror. I like Resident Evil. And Halloween's right around the corner. That's what I'm using to justify making this list. But yeah, basically, I've already made my categories here. We got my Mount Rushmore of Resident Evil games, where I'm going to try to narrow it down to my 4 favorite ones. Peak Resident Evil, fun but flawed, okay, abysmal, or haven't played, or can't recall. I've played, like, I want to say like 90% of Resident Evils, but how much I've retained of each one will be a a journey in and of itself. But I'm going to try to make this as ordered as I can and really challenge myself. And this is, if you can't already tell, going to be more of a discussion style video. There's not going to be like gameplay cutaways or anything like that. This is just going to be me being stupid and rambling about my favorite Resident Evils. And we're just going to kind of go down the row here in the order that they're placed at the bottom of this list here. And yeah, that's enough of me rambling. Let's actually get into ranking these games. All right, so we got the first Resident Evil down here. Of course, the game has started it all. And I'm going to say this is peak RE, but none of my Mount Rushmore. It is a little dated by modern standards, but still fun if you enjoy, like, you know, cheesy voice acting. And it's still scary in parts, but graphics kind of hold it back a little bit, but it is still pretty fun. I would recommend it if you haven't played a survival horror game before or just want to see where Resident Evil started. And then we also have Resident Evil Director's Cut, which is the same thing as the original Resident Evil, just more features that they've added to the game. I believe that they've, you know, you can change like item layout and things like that, and just more content overall. I haven't actually played the Director's Cut myself. I've only played the original, but it's Resident Evil 1, but better. So I'm going to put it next to peak Resident Evil because I have a feeling it would be still pretty good. Now we got RE2 next on the list. Where are we going to throw it? I think I kind of already hinted and showed my hand a little bit here, but we're going to put it in peak Resident Evil. This is the game to introduce Leon, which is now the poster boy of Resident Evil, and of course Claire Redfield as well. Of course, Resident Evil 1 introduced Jill and Chris, who are also staples of the Resident Evil franchise. I didn't touch on that because I'm an idiot. Now, I know this is a lot of people's most loved and beloved Resident Evil because it basically took everything about RE1 and improved upon it. I know a lot of people like Leon more than Chris anyway, but I'm going to put it here. I actually like RE1 more. I am biased because I like Chris and Jill more, and I like the setting of the mansion more than the police station. So I'm going to put Resident Evil 2 here. Now, next, we got Nemesis, and I'm also going to put it peak RE, and I'm actually going to put it above, if I can move it, above RE2. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I do like the atmosphere of Jill running around the city and being hunted by Nemesis. So a lot more compared to Mr. X and RE2. And plus, I like Jill more than Leon and Claire, if I'm being completely honest as well. And plus, you know, I like the settings of the hospital and the clock tower stuff a lot more, and just roaming Raccoon City and running into Nemesis a lot. I think it adds a lot to the tension. I'm just kind of rambling, aren't I? But yeah, this is just my justification of putting RE3 above RE2. Next on the list is Resident Evil Survivor. I've actually not played that. Somehow, some way, have missed that. I don't even know really what system it was on. It might be a PS1 game. Not 100% sure, but that's one of the few ones that I've missed. And now we got Code Veronica, which I'm going to put in peak Resident Evil and Code Veronica X. Now, I've not played the normal, I guess, first edition of Code Veronica. I played Code Code Veronica X that re-released on the PS2 back in the day, and I'm actually going to put Code Veronica at the very top of this list because I actually really like playing as Claire and Chris, and this is where you get the first glimpse of a superpowered Matrix Wesker. Plus, I like the setting of the prison, and I think the Ashfords are pretty good villains as well. And I like the exploring the Antarctica base. It can be a pain in the ass to say the least. It is very easy to save lock yourself in this game, which I have done quite a few times, but that's part of its charm. So yeah, I'm putting it here. So we get Resident Evil Survivor 2 next, which I've also never played because I somehow missed the Survivor series back in the day. And next we got Resident Evil Gaiden, the Game Boy game. And I'm gonna put it down here as well. I have played Gaiden on an emulator like a long time ago. I didn't beat it or get through it. It just wasn't very enjoyable to me from what I remember, so I just never completed it and have never gone back to it. But maybe I should go back to it at some point. Feel free to tell me if Gaiden is worth playing or not. But maybe someday I might might go back to it if I feel like maybe punishing myself someday. But all right, next we got the GameCube remake of Resident Evil, and I'm really torn of whether to put this on my Mount Rushmore or peak Resident Evil, but it's going to go at the top. This is probably my favorite of the old Resident Evils with the static camera that you can't adjust or anything like that. It's just everything that the first game has, but just dialed up to 11 and just completely it's just the best version of the old school Resident Evil, I think. You get the additional content of where they added Crimson Heads and Lisa Trevor to the game, which kind of adds to the overall atmosphere and the tense vibes and everything. So I'm gonna put Resident Evil GameCube remake at the very top of peak Resident Evil, and I might add it to my Mount Rushmore. I don't know yet. Right now we got Resident Evil 0. Now my peak Resident Evil slot is completely loaded. I don't know where I want to put this. I think I think it might be better than Fun But Flawed, but I think it's at the bottom of this. There are a lot of like good things about RE0. Like, it's the first Resident Evil game where you actually get to play as two characters at once with Rebecca and Billy. I do like the setting of the train and the mansion that is also in this game. But I don't know, the animal enemies that they kind of focus on a little bit in this game and the leech monsters and stuff are cool. I don't know if Marcus is as good as a villain as, like, let's say, like Wesker or Birkin. But the game itself is fun, but I think it's just slightly below these. I could change my mind later, but this is where I'm going to put our Resident Evil 0 for now. Feel free to tell me that if I'm stupid or not. But next we're going to go down here and get Dead Aim. And I hope I'm remembering this game right. I feel like I played this before. I think it's one of the, like, on-rails shooters that was on the PS2. I slightly remember it being fun. I honestly don't remember much about it, other than it being a rail shooter or on-rail shooter, which is, one of those point-and-click games, kind of like Duck Hunt, but Resident Evil. So I'm going to put it as okay. I remember it being, well, okay, which is why it's going to be here. Now, Resident Evil Outbreak is going to be kind of hard for me to rank. So I'm going to put them in okay, and here's my justification for them. I don't think they're bad games. I just think they're very hard to play by yourself because the AI can be kind of frustrating, to say the least. So, like, I've played these games, but I haven't beaten them. And I played them when I was a child, or at least in middle school. But yeah, so I just didn't have the brain power to navigate 4 characters or just get through these games. But maybe it might be something where I've grown up to revisit at some point if I can find a way to to play these games, probably on emulator. I don't think they're on anything else. But yeah, the Outbreak series, fun, old school. Resident Evil is more like kind of like in the vein of like a SOCOM, where you have 4 members you're kind of keeping track of, from what I recall. So we're just going to put them in the okay tier for right now. I'm sure they're fun if you have like a full party, but it was kind of hard to do that on the PS2 back in the day. All right, now we've got Resident Evil 4. I think RE4, at least the original RE4's got to go on the Mount Rushmore. Now, it's not my favorite Resident Evil game of all time. We'll get to that when I get to it. But RE4 is kind of what, I don't know, re-put Resident Evil 4 on the map, is what made, I guess, Leon, I think, the most, in my opinion, like the poster boy of the franchise. Completely revitalized and rejuvenated Resident Evil by making it a third-person shooter, which you may hate or may love. They may think Resident Evil jumped the shark at RE4, or you may love it. But I love it. I think it has the right balance of shooter and enough tense moments to make it scary, though it is not as scary as the other Resident Evil games. But when you get to the regenerators, I think that's when it kind of ramps it up to maximum overdrive, we'll say. But all right. Next, we got Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles, which is actually a game I like a lot. It is also an on-rail shooter for the Wii. I don't know if it ever got ported to anything else, but I played it on the Wii. But it's an on-rail shooter that's a retelling of the first 3 Resident Evils, 0, 1, and 3. And it kind of changes the narrative of the original games. If you're unfamiliar with the originals, most of the time you're playing as one character. Like, you get a choice, like let's say in Resident Evil 1, you choose to play as either Chris or Jill. They don't really interact with the other character really throughout the story a whole lot. But the Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles changes it to where you're actually playing as both of them together, because the game is a co-op on rail shooter. It's really fun. It also has a bunch of additional modes, like you can unlock a Wesker's story, from what I recall, and play through Wesker with his superhuman insanity and see how he got his powers, and just how much of a crazy deranged dude that man really is, and play with all the Matrix stuff you can do. But yeah, I think it's a really fun game. I think I enjoy it more than 0. It also has an original campaign as well, where you play through going through an Arctic base as Chris and Jill. But I've always just found it fun. I think it's a really good on-rail shooter. All right. Now, this is going to be my most probably controversial take, and probably where I lose a lot of people if I haven't lost them already. It is Resident Evil 5. And Resident Evil 5 is actually my favorite Resident Evil. Now, I will say that it is not a scary game, even in the slightest. But like, I just love the absurdity of it, and how much of just a ridiculous character that they've made Chris Redfield. And this made Chris my favorite character in the entire series. I mean, the dude punches a volcano, or not punches a volcano, I wish, that'd be next level. He punches a boulder inside of an active volcano, and is the most absurd shit, especially if you have played the original Resident Evils and see how this man develops over the course of the series. But I would just have a lot of fond memories of this game. I played the co-op of this game a ton with friends of mine, and that's kind of just the nostalgia that kind of keeps it honestly in first place for me. But I love it. I unapologetically love Resident Evil 5, and it will probably always be my favorite. Again, it's the first that introduced the co-op in like the mainline stories, and yes, it's stupid, like action movie dumb, but still, I do enjoy it a lot, and I will not apologize for Chris punching a boulder in a volcano. But all right. We'll move on from my gushing review of Resident Evil 5. Next, we got Resident Evil: The Dark Side Chronicles, which is the sequel to Umbrella Chronicles, the on-rail shooter, and this is in itself is an on-rail shooter. But I'm going to put this one above Resident Evil: Dark Side Chronicles, put it above Umbrella Chronicles, because it's just Umbrella Chronicles, but just better in every single way. It has a better original campaign than I think Umbrella Chronicles does, even though I prefer the games that Umbrella Chronicles covers. Resident Evil Dark Side is just such a huge improvement that I can't not put it over, and it's just packed full of content. Again, it has an original story. You play through Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil Code Veronica, and you can also play through a unique Jack Krauser storyline that's kind of a bit of a pain in the ass to unlock, if I remember right. But I did have a lot of fun with Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles, and I think it's a fun on-rail shooter, especially I think it's trapped on the Wii still, but still, if you have a Wii and somehow can get a hold of a copy of Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles, I would recommend it. All right, now we got the 3DS game, Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D, and this is just okay. I wouldn't call it abysmal, but it's just kind of meh. It's just the Mercenaries mode, but the Mercenaries mode that was is more like the Mercenaries mode that's tied to Resident Evil 5, and that's fun, but not enough for a standalone game. I think it was one of the first like 3DS titles, but still, it's just kind of meh. Like you can just boot up a Resident Evil game that has mercenary modes and be alright. But I guess where it was portable, maybe that was kind of unique for the time, but just kind of okay. All right, now we'll go next in the list, and looks like we have Resident Evil Revelations. And this is a tough one, but I think I'm going to put Resident Evil Revelations on my Mount Rushmore. This is I guess you can say it's a spin-off because it's not a numbered entry, but it revolves around Chris and Jill and a couple other characters exploring a cruise ship. But I really like the atmosphere of it. It's definitely far more, wouldn't call it straight up scary, but a lot more tense and I guess horror centric than I would say 4 or 5. It's definitely a very tense game, especially if you have played it and have gotten to the part where you fight the ship captain. I can't remember exactly what the name of the monster is, but that's probably the biggest pain in the ass boss fight in all Resident Evil for my money. But but yeah, I do like the atmosphere aboard the cruise ship now and everything like that, and kind of the desolation it puts you in, and plus it has Chris and Jill, and I'm just biased to those two characters, if I'm being completely honest. Now I don't know if I want to put it above 4 or not. I am really debating it because I like Revelations that much, but I don't know if I'm that crazy. I'll leave it where it is. I could change my mind later. All right, we'll move back down on the list. And we have Operation Raccoon City, which is just, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It's it's awful. It's absolutely terrible, and this game broke my heart more than anything else because I thought it was so cool. This is one of the first games like I ever like pre-ordered at like a GameStop midnight release. It was Operation Raccoon City, and I thought it would be so cool since you're playing as like a hit squad. And it's like an alternate retelling of Resident Evil 2 where you can actually like kill Leon like at the end. Like it's just like it has a unique narrative and like some cool-ish characters. At least I thought at the time, but it just it ended up being terrible. And speaking of bad games that people hate, next is Resident Evil 6, and I think it's going to piss a lot of people off where I put this if anybody watches this, because it's going right here. And I actually mean that. Now, follow me here. I am full well know this is a terrible Resident Evil game. However, I do think it is fun as hell, and I'm all for the action movie cheesiness that is full of this game. Plus, it has just a ton of content as well. It has you got Leon with his own campaign, Chris with his own campaign. You got Jake's campaign, which a lot of people can take or leave, but it's still interesting enough. And then you have a campaign for Ada. Now you can argue that maybe it's bloated, but the co-op of this game, which is why I have it so high, and I just have a lot of fond memories playing through the co-op with this game as I do with 5, is why I place it so high in my personal list. Now, RE4, original Resident Evil, and almost every other game on this list is definitely better than 6, but my own personal bias, I'm putting it at number 2. So forgive me, but this is just where I have it, just because of the nostalgia I have of playing it through with friends and stuff like that. And this is where it's going to stay. It's going to be my second favorite Resident Evil game. And either you're welcome or I apologize. Probably I apologize. All right. Now we got Resident Evil Revelations 2, which I think I'm going to put at peak Resident Evil. I don't know where I want to put it. I think I'm going to put it, I guess we'll put it behind Director's Cut and the original RE. It's another, I guess you want to call it a spinoff that revolves around Claire Redfield and Barry Burton. It has unique mechanics, and it's like 5 and 6 where it is a co-op game, and Revelations 1 where it is a co-op game where you play as 2 characters, but it's different in the way where one character is useful and one character has a gimmick. Like with Barry's campaign, you play as Barry. He's like, typical, Resident Evil character, he's got all the guns and all this stuff like that, and can fight. Where you're partnered with a little girl who can point out invisible monsters to you, but she can't fight herself. That's kind of the gimmick. Same with Claire. Her partner can't fight, but she can, if I remember right, shine a light on monsters and reveal them, if I remember correctly. It's been a little while since I played Revelations 2, but basically, you have a partner that you kind of need to protect. Like one partner that's useful, one that's useless. Plus, it has a really interesting villain, I think, in Alex Wesker. And I do like the kind of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of Saul in a way, because you're Claire who's been abducted for like part of the game, and that you're kind of constantly getting injected with stuff if you don't do what the main bad guy's telling you to do. I'm doing an abysmal job of describing this game as I am with all games, but I do think the concept and the gameplay is very interesting. I don't know why it kind of reminds me of gives me like Alan Wake vibe-wise for a reason, but I'm just being stupid now. So yeah, let's move on to the next game, where we have Resident Evil Umbrella Corps, which sucks. I played it maybe once for like 20 minutes, didn't like it at all. Resident Evil shooter, like Call of Duty style Resident Evil game, not worth your time, in my opinion. And next we got RE7, which is another one that I'm probably going to piss people off with, but I'm going to put it right here. Fun but flawed. Now, it was a great return for Resident Evil. And I do like the atmosphere of being in the Baker house and everything, but my biggest complaint is just I'm not a fan of the style of game it is, as in the sense of I don't like first-person games that much at all, and Resident Evil being in first person just kind of was a little bit of a turnoff for me. I've tried to play this game. I've beaten it a couple times, but it's not really one that I have an urge to return to all that often. Plus, I honestly don't really care much for Ethan all that much, and it might be a hot take, but I'd really much rather play as Chris or Leon or Jill or Claire or something like that. He's just kind of a little bit vanilla for me. He is interesting. I understand that he's supposed to be a blank slate, and he's not like, big action hero guy. He's just a dude that gets thrown into it, which is interesting in of itself, but I think the world around him is just much more interesting than him itself. Like the Bakers, of course, are just far more interesting than Ethan, but it's still a cool atmospheric game. I'm just really the big deterrent is just I'm not a fan of first person. So that's kind of why I'm putting it here, but I won't deny how great it is. Again, this is just a personal thing. I completely understand if you think it's the greatest Resident Evil ever. I will not dispute you. After all, I do have RE6 in my top 2, so I can't really say much because I'm an idiot. All right, next we got the banned footage stuff that came from it. It wasn't. I guess I'll go fun but flawed. I'll put it below 0 because it's not a full game. It was just the DLC that came with it, where you have to kind of like do weird stuff like feed Jack and like play like this poker game with Lucas and stuff like that. I think actually I'll just put it under okay. Again, it's not bad, but it's not really. It doesn't live up to, let's say, like Not a Hero, but it's fun little time waster stuff. All right, now we got RE2 Remake. Now, where do I want to put it? I do like the Resident Evil 2 Remake a lot. Do I want to take something off of my Mount Rushmore? No, but I am going to put it behind. I was debating between these two to go up to my top 4, but I'm going to put Resident Evil 2 ahead of Code Veronica. Even though Code Veronica is one of my favorites of the old school series. But I mean, it's just RE2, but modernized and better. I mean, there's a little bit of cut content, but it's still intact. RE2 just made better. Mr. X is completely better done in the remake of RE2, and plus all the DLC and stuff they added was pretty interesting as well. So yeah, I will put it's just RE2 but better in my opinion. And next we have the remake of Resident Evil 3, which I actually do like a lot. I'm actually going to put it above RE2 and OG RE2 and this version of Code Veronica I've not played. But behind the original, just because I mean it's just as good as Resident Evil 2 Remake, but the problem is that there's just a lot missing from it. The game was clearly rushed, and there's just a ton of cut content, so it's like super short. Like you can finish it in like 4 hours, like even on the first playthrough, if you're kind of hustling and bustling. But yeah, like it's still fun. Still, you'll still enjoy your time with it, but there's just a lot of cut content, and though it's visually better and modernized, it's just not as good as the OG RE3. So what we got next on our list? Resident Evil Resistance. I'll put it in abysmal. Like it's kind of like, I didn't enjoy it all that much. It's kind of Dead by Daylight-ish, I guess, where you're kind of a group of people trying to survive a mastermind who's setting traps for you. Like was potential there, but yeah, I just didn't enjoy it very much. It's not for me. So we'll just go ahead and move on to the next one because I really don't have a lot to say about it. Resident Evil Village will be next, and I like this one a lot more than 7. I think I want to put it in peak, but I don't know how high I want to go. I think I'm going to put it right here above Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Honestly, it would go lower because, again, like I said before, the first time I played it was in first person, which was what was available. And just first person and Resident Evil just isn't for me. But when they added the third person camera, I enjoyed the game a whole hell of a lot more. So that's what puts it up higher and above 7 for me. Now the tension is the horror of 7 there's definitely more of a horror atmosphere to 7 than there is 8. 8 is more like Resident Evil 4. There's scary moments there, especially when you go through House Bavamento, I think that's how you say it, with the big giant baby thing. I'm sure everyone's seen it. That's probably the most scary moment of the game, but for the most part, it's a little bit more shooty, like a 4 or 5. But yeah, plus it has one of my favorite just stupid segments of any Resident Evil, where well, spoilers if you haven't guessed. I'm just saying whatever the hell about any Resident Evil game. But there's a part in this game where you don't play as Ethan anymore. You switch to Chris Redfield, and you just feel like God for a chapter. I just think it's fun. It's dumb, but yeah, that's one of my favorite moments in a Resident Evil series because of that. But yeah, let's see what we got. We got the Shadow of Rose DLC, which I'll put right here. I do think it's really interesting. I've only played through it once. And I did play through it in third person. I think it's only third person, if memory serves. I might be wrong, but I played it in third person. It was like way after it came out. I was a little bit behind on Shadow of Rose, but I think it's interesting. You play as Ethan's daughter, Rose, and she has weird powers, and it's a little more horror than, or I guess more horror vibes than Village itself. But I won't spoil too much from it because I just don't know how to word it properly. But I'll put it right behind Village. Why not? Now we got RE4 Remake, and I think I'm gonna put it here because again I'm just biased over their GameCube remake of Resident Evil 1, but I don't. It is, as it goes, like it's just man, I don't know how I want to word this. Like it's RE4, but modernized, which is great, but it doesn't have the fun campiness of the original RE4, which is fine. Like it's a great game in its own right, and there's a few areas where they kind of cut short, but I mean that's okay. Like I completely understand why the the statue part of Salazar is not in this and stuff like that, but still I lean more towards RE4, even though of the original RE4, namely just because of the vibes and everything. And while the one thing I will prefer is how they've changed the shooting mechanics. Like for a long time, I think it was RE6 was the first game where you could not walk, or where you could walk and shoot at the same time. From 4 all the way through 6, which was actually a surprising amount of games, you could not walk and shoot at the same time in a third-person shooter, which is crazy to me. And but you can do that in the now modernized Resident Evil games. Is what I'm saying. But yeah, I don't know. I'm stupid. Ignore my stupid ramblings. And the final thing we're going to rank is Separate Ways, which is well, the DLC for Resident Evil 4, which is, it's just more 4. but you're playing as Ada. Never a bad thing. I don't really have much to say about it. Other than it's enjoyable. I've admittedly not played the new Separate Ways yet. Somehow I've missed out on that, but I did play the what do you want to call it? I think it's called Operation Ada in the original 4. As far as I know, it's the same thing. So it's more RE4. So it can't be bad. So it's just gonna go right here. But yeah, let's see if there's anything I want to change and if I'm happy with this. Is my Mount Rushmore really RE5, RE6, RE4, and Resident Evil Revelations? I think it is. And that's how it's going to stay. I'm going to stand by it. That's that's going to be my Mount Rushmore, and I'm sure I will be humiliated in kind for my Resident Evil taste. But yeah, here's my Resident Evil tier list. Let's take one last look at it and have an opportunity to shame me for what I think. I know I probably didn't really say like too much in depth by each individual game. This is just me just rambling and trying to do something fun though. So hopefully this is enjoyable. There's one more I want to do while we're in the Halloween spirit where I try to rank the Resident Evil characters because why not? So we'll see if I get around to doing that, and hopefully it'll be enjoyable, and I hope this was enjoyable. So yeah, if you made it this far in the video, I do thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you do feel like it. Feel free to ridicule me in the comments if you made it this far, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.